Hi, I'm Mickey Jaco, and I believe that computers are extraordinarily useful. I also believe they are extraordinarily frustrating. So often you get stuck inside of something you can't get out of, or you don't know what button to click next or what tab to go under. Things pop up constantly out of nowhere to mess up what you're trying to do. You can't find something, you know it's there, but you can't find it. Constantly there are aggravations. It's very frustrating. On this DVD, I'm going to show you some 20 common aggravations and how to solve them. Some little ones and some big ones. First aggravation, a small one. There are certain words you always hate to type because you can't remember how to spell them or because they're very long. There's a way around this by setting up the computer to automatically fill in that full word after you just put in an abbreviation for it. And here's how you do that. You go up to the Review tab, over to Spelling and Grammar, Options, Autocorrect Options. And under this autocorrect tab, down below there's a list of words that it automatically corrects. Now if you misspell any of these words on the left, it automatically fixes it here on the right. Up here in these two boxes you can put in your own word. Now say for example you have a friend named Rachmaninoff and you don't like to spell out his name all the time. So if you put in R-A-C-H into this box as an abbreviation, then you put in the full name over here, R-A-C-H Maninoff. Then it will replace R-A-C-H with the full name. Click Add, OK, close this out, and now if you spell R-A-C-H, as soon as you press the space bar, it fills in the rest of the name, like that. So if you do that for half a dozen words you don't like to spell, it's a great convenience. Just remember though, don't put in a small word that's an actual word for the big word, because then it'll put that in all the time. For example, if you put in car for cardiovascular, every time you type in car, it's going to put in cardiovascular. Next aggravation, also a small one. The computer automatically capitalizes words when you don't want them capitalized. Now, by default, Windows capitalizes the first word of a sentence automatically and the first word of a paragraph. So if I were to start a sentence here with the word here, H-E-R-E, with a small h, as soon as I press the space bar, it jumps up into caps. Okay? Now if you don't want that, if you want to have caps when you order caps and lowercase when you order lowercase, you have to change the default setting. Again, you go up to the Review tab, Spelling and Grammar, Options, Autocorrect Options, and under the Autocorrect tab, the third box down, it says Capitalize First Letter of Sentences. You want that unchecked. Click OK, close that out, close that out. Now, when you type in H-E-R-E as the first word of a sentence, press the space bar, it stays in lowercase. Now most people like the default setting, and if you want to get back to the default setting, sometimes it's a little tricky. You go again where you're supposed to go through Spelling and Grammar, Options, Autocorrect Options, put the check back in, click OK, close this out, and then you think you're all set, and maybe we are. Let's try it. H-E-R-E, press the space bar. It didn't work. What's wrong? We checked it and it's not working. Well, sometimes you have to put in a cap manually like that. Here is the word. And then next time, H-E-R-E space bar, is it going to work? Yeah, okay, it's back working. So sometimes it works on a delayed basis and you have to manually put in a cap first before it goes back to the default setting that most people want. Now a major aggravation, physical discomfort. If you're sitting at a computer for hours at a time, your back can get pretty sore. And if you don't have a router, wires that constantly get in your way can be quite annoying. So these are the two factors I found most important to my own computer comfort. I got myself a laptop bedstand so I can do my work not at a desk. This thing is made out of wood, costs $40, and it's adjustable, and it allows you to do your work on an easy chair or sitting on your bed or even lying on your bed. I found it very convenient for watching movies in bed. I was not able to get a right angle for typing in bed though. It was never quite comfortable for typing, or sturdy enough, or stable enough I should say. So eventually I got myself a different one called a laptop laid back. This one over here, made out of hard plastic, cost $80 and it is superb. It is very stable because it has a wider base. It's adjustable, more easily adjustable than the other one over here. You can collapse it and take it with you, and I was able to find an angle that was excellent or perfect for watching movies or typing in bed. I do 90% of my work in bed now because I've had back problems, and it really has been quite a lifesaver for me for my back problems. So that's one major factor. A second major factor is a router, so that you don't have wires getting in your way all the time. Now most people, it varies, but most people have a wire coming out of the wall into their modem, and the wire from the modem into their laptop. And that's their setup, so when they move their laptop, it's got a wire attached to the modem. If you get a router, the wire goes into the modem, a wire goes from the modem into the router, and the router wirelessly sends out signals to your laptop, another laptop, or a printer, so that wires don't get in your way, and it's a tremendous convenience. And the good thing is there's no drop off in functions as long as you don't get too far away from the router. Okay? The big drawback I found is getting the thing put in the first place. If you go to a Radio Shack, they might tell you or give you the impression that it's pretty easy. You just connect it, press a few buttons, and you're all set. But that's not at all what I found. I found it very difficult. I got to step 23, and I'm not exaggerating, literally step 23, and I got stuck and I couldn't get any further. So I called a Best Buy Geek Squad guy and had him come over to put it in for me. Now, when I have these guys come over to help me out, I usually ask them if I can tape record the session so that I don't have to remember or write down things because it's so easy to forget, and they usually have no objection. So here's part of my literal conversation with this guy who came over. So he says, "Yeah, you got everything connected, right?" And I say, "See, this is as far as I got, and I have no idea what to put in there." "Oh, the username is admin. The password is password." "Oh, the password is password? How would I have known that?" "Security key, is that the same thing as passphrase?" "Yep." See, I hate that. They're talking about the same thing from one paragraph to the next, but they don't use the same name or terminology. This is a lot of stuff. If I tried to go through this on my own, 90% of it, I wouldn't know what it is. I really needed your help. I could have spent 5 more hours doing this and getting nowhere. That's why we're out there. We've done it a few times. We know what to look at. So that was the bottom line for me. It's very difficult to get the thing put in the first place, but once it's in, it's a tremendous convenience and well worth it. It is aggravating to always have to wait 2 or 3 minutes for your computer to boot up. The traditional way of shutting off a computer down here with the start button and shut down, that way you have to wait for it to boot up for 2 or 3 minutes. You can set up your computer to turn off and on when you press the power button, but I don't recommend that because when you press that button to turn the computer off, it shuts off pretty quickly, and it's so easy to forget to save your material. It shuts down and then you've lost all the work you just did. Instead, this is what I recommend. Set up your computer so that when you close the lid, it goes to sleep. And here's how you do that. Click the start button, control panel, hardware and sound, power options, And on the left it has choose what closing the lid does. And it gives you your options over here, whether it's on battery or plugged in, what it does when you press the power button, the one I recommend not to do, and when you close the lid. I put all of these to sleep. Now say you had it here at shutdown, then click the drop down arrow, click sleep, make sure all four of these are on sleep, save changes, and then all you have to do is lower, close your lid, and it turns not off, but it goes to sleep, which means to turn it back on, all you have to do is raise the lid, press the power on button, and within seconds it's back on. And you haven't lost anything. The same stuff that you had on the screen when you close the lid will stay right there, including the stuff you had on your taskbar will stay right there. So it's very convenient. And in fact, Microsoft recommends that this is what you should do. To turn your computer off, don't turn it off, put it to sleep. It uses very little power and it's very convenient because it turns off and on very quickly. The aggravation. You can't remember which folder you have a document under. Is your new porch document under your house folder or your projects folder? Either place is a logical spot for it. It happens quite frequently. You can't remember which folder you have a document under. So there is a tendency to want to do this, to make a copy of that document into both folders. Don't do that. If you do that, you'll get in a worse mess. You'll end up adding material to the document in one folder at one time and to the document in the other folder at another time, and you'll end up with two different documents. So instead, what you want to do is create a shortcut and put the document into one folder and the shortcut for the document into the other folder. I'll show you how that works. Now say I have got my house folder and my projects folder, and down here I have my new porch document. I'm going to right click that document, go down here and create a shortcut. So now I have a new porch document and a new porch shortcut. I will put one of them into one of these folders and the other one into the other folder. That way, next time I'm looking for that document and I can't remember which folder I have it in, I'll click one. Is it under house? Yep, there it is. I'm all set. Is it under projects? No, it's not under projects, but the shortcut is there. So all I have to do is click on the shortcut and it opens that document. And there I am. So that's the way to handle that problem. Make a shortcut rather than make two copies. Because you don't want two different documents developing. You want only one actual document. Next aggravation, you open up a long document that you've been working on over time, but you can't remember or find the place where you last left off without scrolling laboriously all over the place. There's a neat trick to help you find your last stopping point. Now in this particular document, if you look down in the lower left, I'm on page 7 out of 26. So here I am on page 7, right here after the word place. What I'm going to do is put in 3 X's. Control save, close that document out, and then when I open up the document next time, I'm at the beginning. How do I get to my last stopping point? I do a Control F, put in 3 X's, and it takes me right to that spot. Very convenient. I use the same technique for other stopping points. For example, if I have a spelling I'm not sure, but I don't want to check it at that time, I'll put in 3 Ks at that spot. Or some paragraph that I still know I need to revise, I'll put in 3 Ks there. Or some fact I need to check on, I'll put in 3 Ks there. So that when I'm finished working on the document, I do a Control F for 3 Ks to get back to those spots that I still need to work on. Of course, you can use any letters you want. I use 3 X's and 3 Ks because they're easy to remember. The next aggravation is a major one. Happens to me all the time, and I'm sure it happens to everybody else. You have trouble finding a file that you know you have somewhere in your computer, but you just can't find it. First of all, you should be as meticulous and careful as possible in placing your documents and files. You want to put your Word documents into your My Documents folder, your pictures into your Pictures folder, your music into your Music folder, and your video in your Videos folder. If you stick things haphazardly anywhere, you're going to have a major problem in the future. Try to put things into their logical folders. Then your main tool for finding things is your Start search box down here. Click on this. First of all, it lists programs up here. If you click All Programs, it has an alphabetical list up here. And then if you move your way down, it has another alphabetical list of various programs, and you can look for your programs there. Now sometimes it's hard to find them because you don't know the exact name. It might be this slightly different name, so you got to look around quite a bit. And sometimes the program might be under another folder, like this one over here. If you're looking for the sticky notes program or the sound recorder program, they're underneath accessories. So you go down here and you get sticky notes and sound recorder. So sometimes they may be inside other folders. If you still can't find it, then you go down here to the search box and type in what you're looking for. If you know the name of the program is Sticky Notes, you go STICKY and it'll put it up there up on top, and you can click on it and get your Sticky Notes program up here, which is kind of neat. Alright, let's get rid of that. Then if you still can't find a particular document because you cannot remember its name, if you remember a particular word inside that document, that can help you. For example, if you have a bunch of recipes and you're looking for a particular recipe, you can't remember the name of it, but you know the word cabbage is in there. If you spell in the word cabbage in the search box here, it will give you all your documents with the word cabbage in it. Okay? Now you do have to spell things correctly. If you spell cabbage with 2 G's here, then it won't find it. No items. Okay? So that's a good technique to find a document that you can't remember the name of. This search box does need to be updated every so often to make it work more efficiently, and I tell you in the notes how to do that. Now here's some other tips on how to find things. One thing I do is, here's my Documents folder. Notice some of these are capitalized and some of them are not. I capitalize the ones that are more important to me because my eye gets drawn to those more easily. So that's one thing I do. Then what you can do also is alphabetize or number the name of your documents. Say you have a dog named Rover and he's having medical problems and you want to keep track of things. You can name documents on him 1 Rover, 2 Rover, 3 Rover. That way you have them all in chronological order and right at the top of your list. It's good to know that when you're in My Documents, you can have your items listed in different ways. This icon over here, the drop-down arrow, has a selection here. I've currently got it under List, which I like, and I think this is the best, most efficient way to find things, to have a small icon so you can see as much as possible on one screen. If you put in large icons, and they run off the page, so I don't like that. There's another one called Details View. That's pretty good because it gives you date modified, and that can be helpful. Windows Vista doesn't have the options over here like Windows 7. Instead, you have to go over here and click on the View tab. What View tab? The View tab that's no longer there under Windows 7. What you have to do to get it back up is to press the Alt key. Then you get the View tab, click the View tab, and you get your same selection over here on the left. It's gone again. I got to press Alt again to get it back up. View. Let's put it back to List because I think that's the most efficient one to use. You can use one of these views, the Details one. As I mentioned, puts in the date modified for each item. And that can be very useful because if you click on Date Modified, it puts things in chronological order. the most recent one up on top. So if you're looking for an item and you can't remember the name of it, but you know you just recently worked on it, use this view, click Date Modified, and it puts your most recent item up on top. And instead, when you click this again, it puts it in reverse chronological order. Click this, it puts it in alphabetical order. Click it again, reverse alphabetical order. Let's get it back to alphabetical order and list, which is what I like, with the most items on one screen. Then, if you are inside a document, and this happens frequently, and you want to know where you are, how can you find out? It doesn't tell you anywhere up here. If you're under My Documents, it tells you your succession of locations up here. But when you're inside a document already, it doesn't tell you, but you'd like to know. Windows 7, it's easy. You go over to File on the upper left, lower right, Open File Location, and it opens the folder that you're in, gives you the succession of locations up at the top. Windows Vista doesn't have that. Instead, for Windows Vista, you have to go to big colored icon up here. I think it's called the Office button. You click on that, click on Prepare, click on Properties, and then up on the top in a yellow bar, it shows you your succession of locations. You may have to click inside it and scroll to the right to get to the exact location. So those are various ways and techniques of finding stuff that you're having trouble finding. The aggravation. You have a lot of formatting in a document and you want to get rid of it, but you don't want to laboriously undo it piece by piece. Very simple technique. Block your segment, press Control and Spacebar, and that gets rid of the formatting. Or, same thing, block your segment, go up to the font box, click on the eraser icon, and that also gets rid of your formatting all at once. The aggravation. You've got a problem and you don't know where to go for help. You dread getting on the phone and talking to a person from India for 45 minutes and getting nowhere. There are a number of avenues of help. First, you might want to check the Microsoft question mark icon on the upper right over here, this little blue and white icon. Double click on that. It opens up a search box here. Now say you're having trouble setting tabs, so type in tabs, click search, and Microsoft is happy to list for you 30 articles completely unrelated to what you typed in there. My point is that Microsoft Word help stinks. Very seldom do you get something that helps you. If you're lucky you will, but usually not. So I think this icon over here, this question mark icon, is fairly useless. A much better avenue of help is the eHow website. So let's get the internet up here. Alright, notice I have a small window here, and I prefer searching with Google as opposed to Yahoo, and I usually have Google on my favorites bar right here, but I don't see it because it's hidden underneath here, right there. And the reason is because my window is too small. So if I maximize my window, then I get my normal complement of full items up here, including Google. So that's just a side tip. If you don't get what you normally have, it could be because your window's too small. Alright, we're going to click Google, and we're going to Google eHow. Get the eHow website up. Alright, here's eHow. Computers. We'll type in tabs up here in the search box. Search. And what do we get? Let's see, we have guitar tabs, and we have soda can tabs. Aha, which I don't know why those are under the computer category, but here we go. Next one, how to set tabs in a Microsoft Word document. We'll click on that. That's probably going to give us a good answer. And then what they do is they give you a nice summary or overview at the top. and then further down, a step-by-step answer to your question as to how to do it. You may have to search around to find the right article, and sometimes the articles are a little bit out of date. But basically, eHow is a very helpful website. You can also Google a problem directly. Get Google up and just type in how to set tabs. And we can see on the second one down here how to set tabs in Word document in Word 2010. Click on that, and it gives you a nice selection of articles, one of which will probably give you the answer. I have seen Geek Squad guys or gals resort to this technique when they get stumped. They Google the problem. I've seen them do it right in front of me. They don't know the answer to my question. They Google the problem because they know somebody somewhere in the world probably has had the same problem, and they come up with a decent answer. So that's another avenue of help, to Google the problem. You can, of course, use the phone, calling the company that deals with your particular problem or software. But you have to resign yourself ahead of time that it's going to be a hassle. 99 times out of 100, it is a hassle. Getting to a human being, getting to the right human being, listening to horrible broken up music as you wait for the next human being to ask you the same question the previous one asked you, and getting serial numbers from you that are irrelevant and whatnot. But if you have a lot of patience, eventually you'll probably get some kind of answer. Myself, I find when I'm completely stuck, Best Buy is my avenue of last resort. I go there, I may have to wait in line, I may have to leave my computer overnight, I may have to pay something, but usually they'll give you a decent answer to a problem. And lastly, you can refer to computer how-to books. The Windows Vista for Dummies and Windows 7 for Dummies books are good. And I've written a how-to manual myself called Computer How-To for Normal People. And I think that is very useful not only for other people but for myself, because I can't remember all this stuff. If I come across a problem I haven't had for 2 months or 2 years ago, I can't remember exactly how I solved the problem. I just check my table of contents at the beginning for the topic, turn to the page, and there it is, steps 1 through 13 or whatever, as to how to solve the problem. So those are a number of avenues of help when you get stuck. The aggravation. You often have problems with shading. It doesn't seem to respond to your commands, or it goes all the way across the page when you want it to stop at the end of a sentence. First thing to realize is there are 2 different icons involved. In the font box, this crayon icon with the drop-down arrow gives you a small selection of garish colors. That's the highlighting. Over here in the paragraph box, the paint can icon and its drop-down arrow gives you a large selection of colors. In fact, you can do any of these. And the first thing to realize is that this icon, the highlighting one, overrides this one, the shading one. So if you have a line here, I'm going to block this line. I'm going to put yellow shading on it. It shades all the way across. And if I highlight this word and make it red, the red overrides the yellow. So if you were to highlight that, or I should say block that, and go over here to the paint can icon and press white, nothing's going to happen because you have the wrong icon. You have to keep track of which icon it is. You go over here and press white, and you get rid of that. Okay? That's the first thing to realize, is that the one over here on the left overrides the one on the right. Secondly, the way you block it makes a difference. If I go on this line here and block this whole line and highlight it in yellow, the highlighting goes from here just to the end of the text, and that's it. If you block the next line here and use the shading icon, the coloring goes from margin all the way over to the other margin. So that's a big difference between those two also. You can, if you want, use the shading icon to highlight or color just the text, just like the highlighting one, if you block it correctly. So if you go like this, and you focus on this spot right here, this one little extra spot, take that spot off, like that. Then if you use this one, it does only the text and does not go all the way across to the margin. All right. So that little spot right there, this one spot here, is what makes the difference. Now sometimes when you're working with many paragraphs, you've got a mixture of the two items and two different icons, and it's difficult working with them because you have to go paragraph by paragraph to make sure you get the right one when you're making adjustments. And my last point here is that sometimes you see a shading that you like, and the next time you use it, it looks different, and then you get annoyed because you're thinking that Microsoft doesn't have consistent shadings. But it does. What it is the angle of your screen. If you put in a gray shading, a light gray shading, if you have the angle of your screen at a certain spot, you can see it. But if you move it just an inch or two, it almost disappears into white. And then if you move it back, then you can see it again. So it's the angle of your screen, the lid of your laptop, that makes the difference. The shadings themselves are actually quite consistent. The aggravation. Your ink cartridges are low, and you realize that yet again you're going to have to spend more money on new cartridges. You'd really like to be able to save on ink if you could. There are several ways of doing that. One is to use a less heavy font. Now take a look at this sentence up here in red. It's in Times New Roman, which is a fairly heavy font. If I change it from Times New Roman up here down to Arial Narrow, I've reduced the 3 lines to 2 lines, and I save ink that way. Arial and Times New Roman are fairly heavy fonts. Arial Narrow is a nice light font. I once had a 125-page document in Times New Roman. When I changed it to Arial Narrow, it went down to 116 pages. So that's a significant savings in ink. Use a light font. The second method of saving ink is to use the draft mode of printing. Now if I bring up my printer, now printers will vary, but invariably they will have a selection of modes of printing from the best quality down to the least good quality. Usually you print in your text mode. So if you click the draft mode and print all your drafts in draft mode, you'll save yourself a lot of ink. It comes out in a lighter black or almost kind of a dark gray, or in my case almost a brownish color. It's very readable, uses less ink. Then when you're finished doing all your drafts and you're finally ready for your final copy, go back to the text mode and then print in text mode. So you save yourself a fair amount of ink that way. The third way of saving ink, and I find this is the biggest ink saver, is to learn to compose or write directly on your computer. People of my generation are kind of used to putting things on paper in longhand, composing on paper, then typing it up. And this is what I used to do for years. I would compose on a piece of paper, type it up, print out a draft, make corrections, type in the corrections, print out a second draft, and keep going like that for 3, 4, 5, 6 drafts until I got what I wanted. And that uses a lot of ink. But gradually over the years I learned how to compose and write directly on the computer and not print out drafts, but just do my corrections directly on the computer. And there's a reluctance to do that when you're not used to it, but you'll be surprised over time you get used to it, and myself, I prefer it now. So that for me is the biggest ink saver, writing directly on the computer and skipping all those draft copies and all the ink that uses. The next aggravation has to do with money also. You notice on your monthly bill that you're paying $7 each month to rent your modem from your internet cable provider. You don't have to rent your modem, you can own your own. Only costs $70, and within a year you've got your money back. And unlike a router, it's easy to put in. The only thing is a couple things. You have to inform your internet cable provider so they can change your account from a rented modem to an owned modem, and they have to take the serial number and so forth. And secondly, you have to return the old modem to them physically because it belongs to them. Then next month, just check your bill to make sure they're no longer charging you for a rented modem. The aggravation. Say you've taken a ton of notes over the years on something, on recipes or gardening or sports, whatever, and you finally want to organize those notes, but you find that that involves extremely tedious scrolling and moving of segments again and again. There is a nice technique to facilitate that. Now, I used to, and I still watch wilderness survival programs, and I would take notes on all the survival techniques. And so what I did was this. Now here's a page and a half of notes. Well, let's assume this is actually 30 pages of notes, a huge amount of notes. What I did was I put a topic word in front of each note. So fire, water, navigation, water, every note had a topic word. Then if I kept each note to one paragraph, if I had two paragraphs, then what I would do, like up here, I would go to the end of the first paragraph, put in a tab, and move the second paragraph up so it essentially became one paragraph. So I have each note consists of one paragraph. Then I did a Control All, went up to my paragraph box, the sorting icon, which by default sorts alphabetically by the first word of a paragraph. Click OK, and what it does first of all is put a bunch of blank lines up on top and get rid of those, and look at this. We've got all of our topics in alphabetical order, and I can work much more easily with them from this point on. I've saved myself all that trouble of finding and moving all these little segments. I've moved a lot of things into their proper place very quickly. So that's a nice technique for organizing a lot of notes. The aggravation. You're looking for your pointer, but you can't find it because it's very light. You can change the appearance of your pointer so you can see it better by going down to the Start icon, Control Panel, Hardware and Sound, and up here under Devices and Printers, Mouse. And on the Mouse window, the Pointers tab. And in this box there's a drop-down arrow which gives you a choice of different pointers. Now notice the one I have right now is nice and dark and big and dark so you can see it. And it corresponds to the figures down here. Here's my I-beam. It's nice and dark so I can see it. Now if I were to choose this one, that's not bad. If I were to choose this one, well see now I don't like that. That's awfully light. And look at my I-beam down here. It's very light, difficult to see. So the one I prefer is the fourth from the bottom, nice and big and black and dark. Apply, OK. Now some other problems with your pointer is that sometimes it doesn't seem to move too well. And I'm not sure, but I think it's static electricity, and usually if you just fiddle with it for a few seconds, it starts moving all right on its own. Or sometimes if you touch the mouse pad slightly more softly, it works better. At one point I found blowing hot air on my fingers helped it move better. Usually it's not a problem though. What does happen also sometimes though is that it suddenly seems to stop and not move at all. And that's usually because you are inadvertently touching the mouse pad in two places. You're touching the left edge of the mouse pad with your left hand accidentally. Now watch what I'm doing here. I'm moving the pointer around, and I'm going to accidentally on purpose touch the mouse pad slightly on the left side, and then look at that, all of a sudden it stops and won't move. I'm still moving it, but it won't move. So I have to let go of that other spot and it moves again. So watch out that you don't inadvertently touch the very left of the mouse pad with your other finger, because that'll stop your pointer. The aggravation. For whatever reason, the computer won't let you copy a picture or a text. It's good to know that you can get a picture of whatever is on your screen by pressing the print screen key at the far upper right of your keyboard. It says PRTSC on that key. Say for example, I want to get a picture of my desktop. I'm going to press the print screen key. Alright, I did that. Doesn't look like anything's happened, but if I go back to my document and check at the upper left here under my clipboard, there it is, a picture of my desktop. Then all I need to do is go to my document and do a Control V, in other words a paste, of that item, and there it is. You can even do this with a moving picture. Now I'm going to go to Libraries up here. With Windows Vista, this is called Owners. You click on that and it gives you your 4 major folders: Documents, Music, Pictures, and Videos. So I'm going to go to Videos. I'm going to pick something I taped from America's Funniest Home Videos. I'm going to stop it, maximize the picture, press the print screen key, close this, go back to my document, and Control V, and I should have a picture of that young man in his racing bucket, and there it is. Now you may have to trim a little bit of some of the edges here if you want to get rid of some of this extra material. You can even do this as it's moving. Let's get it going again. I'm going to stop it, maximize it, and then I'm going to start it going again, and I'm going to try to time it so that I press the print screen key right when he crashes. Alright, I did. Go back to my document, Control V, and there's a picture of him just about to crash. I missed it by a fraction of a second. So it's good to know you can get a still capture of whatever's on your screen by pressing the print screen key. The aggravation. You try to save a document and you get a window that says read only, and it won't let you save that document. Well, actually you can save that document by making a copy of the material, moving it to a new document and saving it there, but that's another story. In theory, what has happened is that somebody else has put a read-only attribute to that document because that person doesn't want it changed. But then you say to yourself, but I'm the only one that uses my computer, how can that be? Well, somehow that read-only attribute got clicked on. So you have to close your document. Let's say it's this one here, copy 3 here. So you close that document, right-click it, go down to Properties, and down at the bottom of this Properties window it says Attributes Read Only. This box right here needs to be unchecked, OK, and then you should be OK. But of course you're not. It still happens occasionally. Why is that? Well, the reason most likely is this, that when you opened that document, you got impatient and tried to open it up again before it finished opening up the first time. And the computer thinks that it's already been opened, and so that it puts in the read-only or locked or docked for editing, and it won't let you work with it the way you want to. So I talked to a Best Buy guy about this, and he said, yeah, that's probably what it is. You got impatient and tried to open it up again before it finished opening. If you have a document that's already open and you open it again, that's fine. But if it's still in the process of opening up for the first time and you try to open it up again before it finishes, that's when you get that read-only message. So don't do that. Ever since I stopped getting impatient and let it open up, I've been fine and I haven't had that read-only message. The aggravation. You right-click on a document and you don't get your usual options. Where are they? Well, what sometimes happens is when you normally click on a document here, right-click on it, you get these options right here. Your very common cut and copy and delete and rename. But if you happen to be in a different view for your items here, namely, not the list view or the icon view, but the details view, like that, and you right-click here, oh look, you get a different set of options. What happened? Well, very simply what happened is you clicked on the empty spot in here. What you have to do is simply right click on the actual words over here and you get your usual options. The aggravation. You'd like to see more information on your screen, but you don't want to zoom the screen content down to such a small size that reading the text is difficult. There are a couple of ways of getting more screen room. One thing you can do is get rid of this big toolbar up here, the so-called ribbon. On Windows 7, you go over to the right with this little caret here and click on that. And that gets rid of the toolbar up on top. Click it again and it comes back. In Windows Vista, double click on the tab that you're in. That gets rid of it. Double click again and it brings it back. So that's how you can get yourself some more screen room up at the top. Now down the bottom you can do a similar thing. Get yourself some more screen room. Now say I have text that's going like that. There is space between that bottom line and the page number and the edge of the page and then between pages here. You can get rid of all of that by putting your cursor directly on the spot between the pages. Two arrows show up, double arrows, double click that and you get rid of all that space. So you've made yourself a lot of extra room down the bottom, and so you want to get yourself more room up on top, you get rid of that, and so you get yourself more screen room that way. We better get all this back. We'll double click this to get it back, and then to get this back, put your cursor right on that space, right on that line between the two pages. Double click and it comes back. So that's how you can get yourself a little bit more screen room. The aggravation. You've got slightly more than 2 pages of material and you'd like to fit it onto just 2 pages so that you can use the front and back of a single sheet of paper. In other words, in general, how do you fit material into less space so that you use less paper? There are many techniques. I'm going to show you 11 of them. Here is a document. I've got material that covers 2 pages plus a little bit more, and I want to get it down to 2 pages. So how do I do that? Let's try all the different techniques. First one is hyphenation. That's a minor one. It probably won't work. Do we have our hyphenation on? Page layout? Hyphenation? No, it's off. Let's see if that makes a difference. Nope, it didn't change the 3 pages to 2, changed a few things in here, hyphenated a few words in here, but that didn't change our 3 pages into 2. So let's try another technique. Font size. Do a Control-All and reduce the font size by 1 by clicking or pressing Control left bracket. That did it. So that was good, and we just have to take a look at it to see if we like it at that particular size. We might not. In each one of these techniques, you take a look at it to see if you still like the way it looks. You can choose a different font. This particular font is fairly condensed and small, but let's do a Control-All and pick another font. Home, Tab, Font Selection, and Humanist 521 I know is a small font that's pretty readable. That did it. So that might work if you like the looks of it. You can condense the font, or not the font, but the text. You can condense the actual letters. Go to the, first do a Control-All, Font Box, drop-down arrow, Advanced tab. Under spacing here, there's Normal, Expanded, and Condensed. Click the Condensed, click OK, and that did it. We got it down to 2 pages. However, if you take a look at this, in my opinion, I think it looks too squeezed in, so I don't like that. So what I do instead, I go to the same spot, Font, Advanced tab, Spacing, but instead I go to the box right above it. It says Scale. And here it gives you a selection of different percentages. If we were to click the 33%, putting it down to 33%, we'd save ourselves a lot of space. Look at that. But if you zoom that up, you'll see that looks awful. So that's no good. In fact, I think even 80% looks bad because it's too squeezed in. But I find that 90% is pretty good. You can't tell too much difference between, it's very difficult to tell the difference between 90% and 100%. So try 90%, see if that works. That works, take a look at it, see if you like the way it looks. I think it looks pretty good. So that's a technique that I tend to use. Margins, you can change your margins. You go up to page layout, margins. I already have narrow margins, so I'm saving space already, but if I wanted to get even narrower margins, I'd go down to custom margins at the bottom. Click this from 0.5 to 0.3, and then over the right 0.5 to 0.3. That should give me 2 pages, and it does. But I don't like these very skinny, thin margins here, so I'm not going to do that. You can put your text into columns. Page layout, you don't have to do a Control-All. All you have to do is click Columns, 2, and look at that. We saved ourselves a lot of space. Plus, it's easier to read because you're reading down instead of all the way across. So I like that technique quite a bit, and use it all the time, as a matter of fact. You can put your lines closer together. Control-All, Paragraph, Indents and Spacing. Before the line you've got 0, after 0, line spacing single, and over here instead of 1, type in a 0.9, click OK, and that does it. Okay. Now if you try 0.8, I think again it looks too squished in, so 0.9 is probably the limit of what you want to do. But that's a way of saving space. You make the lines closer to each other. Next technique would be something not having to do with the computer, but with your writing. Edit your writing. Knock out a few words, change a few paragraphs around, make your writing more succinct, more compact, so that not only will you save space, but it'll improve your writing. Another technique is to reduce the space between paragraphs. Now I happen to have these paragraphs with a space in between them, and I can reduce this space by putting the cursor at the beginning of the line, pressing Control and then the left bracket key. Watch how this line gets narrower and narrower as I keep pressing it. Okay, so that's another thing you can do. Then there's the so-called widows and orphans, which means single lines sitting by themselves at the bottom or top of a page, separate from the rest of their paragraph, like this line right here. Sitting by itself, it belongs to this paragraph over here, and publishers have traditionally not liked widows and orphans. They don't like single lines sitting by themselves at the bottom or top of a page. So they have widow and orphan control on. Now, the place to find that is under the paragraph. Well, first I have to do a Control-All. Paragraph, line and page breaks, widow, orphan control. It's off, therefore it allows a single line down here. If we put it on, watch the single line jump up and join the rest of its paragraph on the next page. See, it jumped right up. But of course, if you want to use this space down here, you don't want widow and orphan control on, you want it off, so that we use this space. So that's another factor in saving space. And lastly, where you put your page number makes a big difference. Now, in my particular document here, I have my page number quite low. In fact, as low as it goes. Here's my page number 1. I'm going to double click on this just to show you how it works. Footer from bottom is at 0. If I were to move it up higher, you would have more and more space here, which you're not using. Now watch that bottom line move up. Okay, so you don't want that. You want the opposite. You want the page number as low as possible, so that you use as much space as possible. Alright, close that out. So those are 11 different techniques of saving space. Probably my 2 favorites are the double column one and the reducing the text to 90% scale. Here's an aggravation that's happened to me many times. You're typing some text in justified format, and then suddenly your words are spread out over the line. For example, if I'm going along this line and I'm typing right to the end of the word words, and all of a sudden this happens. Oh no, what happened? Well, before I tell you what happened, how do you get rid of it? You do a Control Z to get back to where you were, or you put your cursor right at the very end of the line and press delete, and that'll fix it. And what happened was you accidentally pressed the shift key and the enter key. And what that does is justify the line right at that spot. So if I'm at the end of the word example here and I accidentally press shift and enter, it'll justify those three words like that, which of course you don't want. And usually it's because you meant to press shift and the quote key, but you accidentally moved your finger over a little bit and pressed shift and enter key instead. I will finish with a few quick tips. What's the difference between apply and OK? Well, let me get a window up that has that option in it. I'm going to right click a document here, go down to properties. Alright, here's a window that happens to have an OK and apply. Notice the apply one is grayed out because I haven't made any changes. As soon as you make some changes in here, if you enter something or check or uncheck something different, then the apply button here activates. If you click on it, it applies those changes and keeps the window open. If you click on OK, it does the same thing. It applies those changes, but it closes the window. So that's the only difference. OK closes the window, applies the stuff, but still keeps the window open. Now when you are typing your normal text, you put in a tab, an indent, and then you start typing. You get to the end of your paragraph, you put a period, press enter, press tab, start another paragraph, and so on. That's the normal way you type. You can get yourself an automatic indent as soon as you press enter from the previous paragraph, so that you don't have to press the tab key anymore. If you go over to the icon over here, the ruler icon, this little thing here, click on that. That brings up the ruler at the top. Go across to the left, and there's a little hourglass looking icon here. You grab the top part of that and drag it over to the extent that you want your indent to go. Let's pick 1 inch. Okay. Then from that point on, you're typing along. You finish the paragraph. Then as soon as you press enter, it automatically indents the next paragraph. So you got your tab already put in. So that saves you some time. Some people might like that. For many years, I did not know this next icon existed because it's so bland and innocuous. If you look down at the far lower right of your screen, there's this little rectangle here. If you click on that, you get the desktop. Click it again, brings you back to where you were. So that's very convenient. And lastly, what's the difference between the number 0 and the letter O? The 0 is more oblong, the O is more round. I remember this by thinking of the phrase number of eggs. I know eggs are oblong, so the number is oblong. Thanks for watching. I hope this has been helpful. Of course, there are hundreds of other aggravations, and I cover them in a very useful manual I've written called Computer How-To for Normal People. I go over all these procedures and problems and all the things a normal person wants to be able to do with a computer. And you can get it from Amazon.com or from my website, computerhowtobook.com.